So in a certain community, there was two synagogues. One was for the wealthier people, and one was where more of the peasant, lower class tended to pray. The peasant shul tended to begin every Shabbat at around 5 a.m. And they were known to complete the entire book of Tehillim, of Psalms, before they even prayed. Now, they weren't very learned in Torah, nor were, they necessarily so aware of all the intricacies of Jewish law and everything like that, but they were very simple and sincere in their service. And even though they could barely read, even in a sense, they couldn't understand what they were reading, they cared very much to try their best. And that's why they had this practice of doing the entire book of Tehillim before even praying on Shabbos morning. Meanwhile, like I said, there was another shul for the wealthier class. And one of the members of the shul, his name was Yoel. And this Yoel one day decided that he really wanted to fulfill the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll. So he went and he looked in the region and he found the most learned and experienced and skilled Sofer Stam, scribe, to go ahead and teach him. And for every week, for years, he went and he learned everything from the halakha, the Jewish law, when it comes to writing a Sefer Torah, all the way to the deeper ideas of this mitzvah, of this commandment. Also, obviously, the penmanship and the practical aspect of knowing, how to write the letters and everything like that. And after years, he was finally ready to do his own. And it took him, a good year and a half, but he managed to complete his very first Sefer Torah. And now he wanted to show off his wonderful accomplishment by making a big feast, a big celebration for the completion of the Sefer Torah, to which he invited the who's who of society, the big rabbis and the big chazans and the big, you name it, all the top of the top. And so he planned that everyone would come, and when the time was right, he would come down the stairs and everyone would be sitting there around the table at a wonderful feast that he spent a great deal of money on to make it immaculate. And then he would expound to show that he knew everything from the simple to the most complex idea when it came to writing a Sefer Torah. Now, there was a Jew who davened and prayed at the peasant shul named Moshe. And Moshe was walking around town, and all of a sudden he saw a bunch of people dressed in very nice clothing heading to the house of this man Yoel. So he asked some of them, what's going on? Where is everyone heading to? They said, oh, didn't you hear? There's a new Sefer Torah. We're going to, the celebration of the completion of a new Sefer Torah. So he says, what? That's awesome. So he quickly ran home and he put on his Shabbos clothing because he wasn't so well off. He only had one really nice pair of clothing. And off he went to be a part of this wonderful festive occasion. And so he comes into the house and everyone's sitting at the table, schmoozing, eating, and he sees an open chair. And he goes and he sits in the chair and he's just so happy to be in this wonderful atmosphere for this wonderful, Sefer Torah commemoration. And when the time's right, Yoel now comes down the stairs and everyone stands and claps, and Moshe too is so excited to be there with all these special people, and he's standing and clapping. And as Yoel goes around, he's shaking hands and saying, so good to have you, or whatever. And all of a sudden he turns and he sees this Moshe, the simple Moshe, sitting there at right at the top of the table. So he goes up to him and he says, what the heck are you doing here? He says, this isn't for you. This is for the upper class. He says, what do you think? Just because you say the book of Tehillim every day, that you deserve, that you're on the level to be here with us? And he made him feel so bad. And he said, get the heck out of here. And Moshe was just completely shamed, but he stumbled over himself as he left, and he felt so bad. Yoel proceeded to begin his speech, and for the next half an hour, he told everyone the ins and outs, the depth of the depth as well as the most practical aspects of writing a Sefer Torah. And after he finished, everyone stood up. It was brilliant. It was marvelous. He showed that he had mastered the subject. That night, he goes to sleep with a smile on his face, so proud of what he's accomplished. And in the middle of the night, while he's sleeping, suddenly he has a very lucid dream. It's like a tornado hits, and all of a sudden he comes to, and he, in the dream, which is very lucid, once again, he's like in the middle of a desert. And there's like a sandstorm, and he's trying to find refuge, and all of a sudden he sees a light in some kind of cabin out there in the desert. So he fights his way to this cabin, and he peeks through the window, and there he sees men dressed in high priest or Sanhedrin, like big head judges clothing, and all of them have like faces of angels, long beautiful white beards. And he gets a sense like, wow, these must be very, very holy and special individuals. And all of a sudden, the man at the head of the table in this little cabin stands up, and he says, I've called you all here today in order to do a beis din, for a court ruling. And he says, I, King David, hereby ask that the court decides in favor of Yoel. And all of a sudden, Yoel realizes they're talking about him, that he should get the death penalty for desecrating the book of Tehillim, Psalms, and all those that spend their time saying Psalms. In a sense, spitting in my legacy's face. And everyone in the room is nodding, and Yoel can't believe it. And he goes pale, and he's like mamash, like on the verge of passing out, when all of a sudden the door swings open and another super angelic feature comes into the equation. And the man speaks up, and he says, King David, with respect. And he says, Holy Baal Shem Tov, of course. What do you have to say? He says, well, I'd just like to propose a thought. If we give Yoel the death penalty, how will the world be aware that this is not something that is to be taken lightly? To speak badly about Tehillim, the power of Tehillim, and everything like that. Wouldn't it be better if instead of causing him to die, we allow him to live and to go and write the situation and tell everyone about what happened here today, so that everyone will hereby have a greater awe and respect for Tehillim and for those who say Tehillim. And around the room, people are nodding. And eventually comes to King David, and he says, very well, I accept. So be it. Yoel will not die, on the condition that he recounts what happened here today and he makes right what he did wrong. All of a sudden, Yoel wakes up in a sweat. It was more real than life itself. He immediately looks at his watch, and he sees it's about 4:45 in the morning. And he quickly puts on his clothing and he runs to the shul of the peasants. And there at 5 a.m., they're already sitting about to start saying Tehillim. And he comes bursting in, and everyone recognizes that this is one of the noblemen. These men never come to his shul. Right away, he runs up to Moshe, and he gets on his knees, and he says, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And he tells everyone in the shul about the dream that he had and how real it was. And he says, please, I beg you, I will never speak badly about you guys and what you do here. I have the utmost respect. All I ask is that from now on, allow me to please join you every Shabbat at 5 a.m. to say the whole book of Tehillim, as I now have a newfound appreciation for just how powerful it is, just how much respect it has on high. And Moshe looks at him and he says, as soon as I left that place, I had already forgiven you. Don't you worry about a thing. And word got around, of course. And it was a major Kiddush Hashem, or we should say Kiddush Tehillim, that finally people came to understand that even if you're not the most learned individual, God at the end of the day and the heavens at the end of the day have the greatest appreciation and respect for those who have genuine sincerity in their service, even more so than those that are extremely learned. And especially to always remember that one should never shame another Jew, that this is equated to the death penalty. It's in a sense like shedding blood, and even one could go as far as to say, the sages bring that they lose their portion in the world to come.